Hi, welcome back to Find the Answers. In this series of tutorials, we're looking at how to solve PBL scenarios with library research. In previous tutorials in this module, we started to do some preliminary research into a PBL case. In this tutorial, we'll continue with the same case that was outlined in the first tutorial, the 22-year-old woman with pelvic pain, uterine bleeding, and nausea. After you've considered the possible causes of your patient's symptoms and narrowed it down to selected conditions, it's time to consider differential diagnosis. All the tools discussed in these tutorials can be found in three ways. First, through using the U of T Library Catalog. Second, through searching the title in the eResources tab on the Gerstein homepage. And third, under the link to Clinical EBM on the Gerstein homepage. In this tutorial, we're going to look into recommended resources for differential diagnosis. Now that you've learned more about possible diseases and conditions that relate to your case, you may be considering one or more tests that would confirm or rule out a possible diagnosis. At this stage, it's useful to learn how effective a test is, or the relative effectiveness of different tests. In finding a good information tool for differential diagnosis, we want to identify sources that provide not only the possible test choices, but also provide a quick overview of the evidence on the efficacy of tests and diagnostic instruments. It's at the stage of differential diagnosis where the need for current evidence becomes more important. There are two major sources for evidence on diagnostic tests: PubMed Clinical Queries, where you can search for studies on sensitivity and specificity of diagnostic tests, and Micromedex, which is mainly a drug information database but also has a large database of diagnostic tests, along with synthesized information on current studies for test effectiveness. In this example, we see the link to PubMed Clinical Queries. Clinical Queries is a special tool in PubMed that enables you to search for clinically relevant studies using a variety of filters so you can get clinical information faster. Once you've connected to Clinical Queries, select the Search by Clinical Study category. For this search, I want all the evidence for diagnostic effectiveness of tests for pelvic inflammatory disease, which is one of the possible conditions in this case. I type in pelvic inflammatory disease, I select the Diagnosis button, and then I decide whether I want a lot of articles, which is the broad search, or just a few articles, which is the narrow search. When I hit the Search button, Clinical Queries uses its filters to identify relevant studies that contain evidence related to diagnosis of pelvic inflammatory disease. I should find studies that evaluate the sensitivity and specificity of diagnostic tests without ever having to use those words in my search. Here we can see the results of the search. Although PubMed is a database of many millions of articles, the filters of Clinical Queries helped us narrow down results to a manageable number. You can now review the titles and abstracts of some or all of these results to see if any articles offer insights on the best diagnostic tests for pelvic inflammatory disease. Another good tool to find evidence on diagnostic tests is Micromedex. In this example, I'm searching for serum quantitative HCQ measurement, which is a test for detecting ectopic pregnancy. Ectopic pregnancy is another possible diagnosis for our patient. If you know the name of the test, you can enter it into the search box in Micromedex, and an autocomplete feature will assist you in picking the best search term. In the results list, look for the link that has evidence-based information. In this case, it's the Lab Advisor. Click on that link for more information. This is the information page for the test. In addition to information on basic values and reference ranges, look for the link marked Indications. This contains the evidence summary about the test. When you expand the list of results, you'll see a summary presentation of the evidence on the effectiveness of this test for a suspected ectopic pregnancy. Unlike PubMed Clinical Queries, Micromedex summarizes the evidence and assigns a grade to it. Scroll down further on the page, and you'll see levels of sensitivity and specificity. In addition, Micromedex backs up all statements with direct links to the journal abstract for the clinical study that supports each statement. In this tutorial, we looked at the resources for differential diagnosis. Join me in the next tutorial in this series where we'll look into recommended treatment resources.